Hi. It's been a while since the last Horus Heresy video that I've done. I've read a few more books since then. I covered the first 4 in the first video, and originally I was going to cover another 4 books in this video, but I had so much to say that it ended up being about an hour long. So I decided to split it up into separate videos that I'm just going to do a sort of an ongoing series every so often. This is not going to become a Warhammer channel. It's not going to become just reviewing these books and that's it. I think this is something that I do still want to do. I really enjoy making these kinds of videos. I enjoy playing Space Marine 2 for the background footage here as well, so I want to continue doing it. I think this is going to be something that I'll be posting every so often. It's not going to be something that's going to be super consistent. But yeah, I've read a lot of books. There's a lot that I have to say for a lot of these books, and so I'm going to continue to do this until I've basically run out of books to read. You don't have to watch the first video to understand this one. I would really appreciate it though, but you don't have to if you don't want to. There's going to be maybe 1 or 2 references to the original 4 books, but not in a way where you'll have needed to watch those videos to understand what I'm saying. And again, I'm sort of carrying on from the Reanimal video where I'm doing more of a chatty style instead of the super scripted, quite serious style. So let me know what you think of these kinds of videos. Also, this is going to be a spoiler discussion of the book, so if you haven't read it, I would highly recommend doing so before watching this video. But with all that out of the way, let's get on to Fulgrim. Fulgrim is really good. I really enjoyed reading it. I found the themes of the story really quite interesting. The exploration of perfectionism, not only in martial disciplines, but also artistic ones, I thought was so interesting. And it kind of approaches it from different angles as well. It's in attaining perfection, the toll it takes in trying to attain it, and also the aftermath for those that actually do achieve it or do achieve it in their eyes. And I thought it was so interesting that they dedicated so much time to artists as remembrances in this book, where before remembrances before were very much like journalists and historians, and them being artists for the Emperor's Children makes a lot of sense, of course, but I found that so fascinating, and the way it's handled in the book is really well done. We primarily follow Solomon Demeter. He witnesses the degradation of the Emperor's Children over time, leading up to the infamous Drop Tap Massacre. And I was genuinely quite worried, I think, initially that Demeter was going to be just like another Garfield Loken. But actually, this might be kind of a controversial thing to say. I might actually prefer Demeter. He's a much more sort of upbeat guy who has a lot more personality. Garfield Loken is a very Captain America kind of character. He's a bit bland. He just wants to do the right thing, and he has his own beliefs, and he kind of sticks with them. Not to say that he's a bad character. I want to make that really clear. I really do love Garfield Loken, but I just think Demeter brings a lot more to the setting as a protagonist in terms of his personality than I think Loken did. He stands out as well amongst a group of really pretentious, arrogant soldiers, or Space Marines, I guess, to be more specific. And that kind of leads quite nicely onto the other part that I really liked about this book. It's how everyone's kind of insufferable here. Everyone really sucks. Because you get Eidolon, you get Lucius, and a few other characters, and they all kind of suck. They all really suck. They're really mean, and they're incredibly arrogant, and they're always competing with one another to be perfect. You get Fabius Bile in this book as well quite a bit. Actually, in his initial scene where he's introduced, it's one of my least favorite parts of the book, just because it has a staple of the heresy books that I really dislike, where someone wants to do something controversial. The character's like, no, you can't. That's against the Emperor. I can't believe you would even suggest it. And then the character's like, well, what if we just do it? And they're like, that's a good point, actually, let's do it. And it's like, okay. There's the initial pushback, and then they're really easily convinced to do the thing that they were disagreeing with a second ago. And that's exactly what happens with Fulgrim. I believe it's Fulgrim and Fabius Bile in that scene, where he's like, we should improve Space Marines. And Fulgrim's like, I can't believe you would go against the Emperor. Are you saying that he's not perfect? And he's like, I'm not saying he's not perfect, but we could improve it. And Fulgrim's like, all right, fair point. And I'm like, okay. That was actually quite easy to convince him. But speaking of Fulgrim, though, I really didn't like Fulgrim. I actually think Fulgrim is my least favorite character in this book. I think just because we don't really get that much of his motivations. If Fulgrim was simply a regular space marine, I wouldn't fucking question it. Like he's kind of the same as everyone else, which makes sense. Like obviously the Legion is like made after Fulgrim. I understand that, but there's very little difference between him and the way that like another regular space marine thinks or acts or speaks. And I would have really liked there to be a bit of a difference there. And also the fact that he just has like a regular like chaos corruption that causes his downfall just didn't feel great to me. I didn't really like that at all. I don't know, I found it almost a bit frustrating because I was like, oh, I don't know, like I kind of, like Horus has a chaos corruption downfall, but it's balanced with like his personality and his motivations and his frustrations and his anger at his father. And so I think it's a bit more balanced like that. But with Fulgrim, it just kind of seems like, I don't know, he just keeps falling and then that's kind of it. Yeah, I didn't think that part was done particularly well. I think I would have wanted a bit more. But the story is exceptionally well paced. They cover a ton of stuff in just one book. And like I never once felt bored or kind of tired about like what was going on, what was being depicted. I'm really just impressed that McNeill was able to like strike this balance between having the dialogue scenes, having the action scenes, balancing them well enough for it to not really feel like it was you're kind of like trudging along. It really felt like no, you were I wouldn't say breezing past a lot of stuff, but I was always engaged the entire time. And I just that might sound like a basic compliment to give, but I think with a book that covers so much content, I just find it really impressive. If I had to say something about it, I think they lingered on like the Laren thing at the beginning a little bit too much, and I think I got to a part of the book where I was like, I think I'm ready to move on from this. I don't really care about this anymore. And I felt that just as they were gonna get to the temple, and then I was like, oh no, this is great actually. This is actually really interesting. Yeah, so no, I thought that was really well done. The book also culminates in the opera house scene, which I think is genuinely one of the most disturbing scenes I've read in the series so far. My face had a permanent grimace while I was reading through the section. I think it was because everything was so like visceral and disgusting, but also I think McNeill does an amazing job at really underlining how uncomfortable it is. Like how there's no escape from it. Like all of your senses are being attacked at one time and you simply can't like look away, or you can't block your rays, like nothing will help. Like I could feel that kind of hypnosis in the book, and I was almost hypnotized in a certain way. Well, while reading it, I really felt like, oh my god, I almost can't look away. Like I know that people say a lot of the time that it's like a car crash, like you want to look away but you can't. I kind of felt similarly here, where I was like, I kind of want to stop reading, but I kind of don't want to either. This is like fascinating. So that was exceptionally well done as well. And I know this is gonna sound a bit like I'm on the Fulgrim hate train, but I really found Ferrus Manus to be a little bit more interesting than Fulgrim actually in this book. I mainly found him just kind of more likable. He has a stoicism to him, but he also like, he wants people to disagree with him. He's not to the point of like, he's not like a Perturabo level of like, no, I'm the best person in the room, no one can ever disagree with me. He's stoic and he can be kind of like grumpy, but he really accepts criticism, especially from the closest people around him. And I really do appreciate that actually about Ferrus Manus. And honestly, with him being there and with like meeting some of the other like Iron Hands characters, I wanted to read more about the Iron Hands. I'll be honest, I think if anything, Fulgrim with the book has made you want to just read an Iron Hands book. And of course, infamously, in the same book that Manus is introduced in, he also dies in. After having read the book now, I think it's a massive waste. I think it's a massive, massive waste. I think Ferrus Manus could have added such an interesting element to the rest of the Heresy series. And it would have been really interesting to see him interact with some of his other brothers, especially like Perturabo, or someone that's like really, really different from him, like let's say like the Khan. Like that would have been really cool. And so I found it a little bit frustrating that he died this early on in the series. I also think that like if they had developed Fulgrim and Manus's like love for each other over a longer period of time, I think his death would have been way more impactful. This book also suffers from the thing of like, oh, they love each other so much, but it's not really shown. Like they love each other to this certain extent that is almost expressed as like more than some of the other brothers. But I didn't really get that impression when I was reading the book. They kind of just felt like amicable, but that was sort of it. And so I would have wanted to see that develop more over time. And for Ferrus Manus to be killed off like this early, I think was, yeah, I don't know. I found that frustrating. I would have wanted to see a bit more of him. Also, the drop site massacre itself was actually quite disappointing. It's not that it was poorly written at all. I'd heard about it for so long, and so I kind of hyped it up in my own mind about like this insane event and how like the drop site massacre was better known than like Isfahan 3. And so I was like, oh, okay, like this is probably going to be a huge, huge event, and I can't wait to read about it in Fulgrim. But then I got there and I was like, actually, Isfahan 3 was more impactful. And I think one of the reasons why is like in Galaxy in Flames, Isfahan 3 is given a lot more page time than the Dropsite Massacre, but also it's a lot more personal. I felt like with the Dropsite Massacre in Fulgrim, it feels a bit impersonal because we only really get the perspective of the Emperor's children, like of the perpetrators. We're not really getting it of the victims. We're not really seeing like the horrors of it in that regard. Not that it's never expressed in that way, but I think it's a lot more impactful in Isfahan 3 because we're really getting it from the perspective of those suffering from it and those who are like confused as to what exactly is going on. And I found that to be a lot more impactful for sure. But yeah, I was a little disappointed by it. It kind of, I don't know, I think with Isfahan 3, initially you kind of don't really know what's going on as the reader. I think as a result, it sort of amps up the tension. Whereas here, you kind of know what's going to happen from the start. Like, you know that they're not going to be overwhelmed. You know that Horus has a plan here. And so it's a bit like, oh, okay. Yeah, so I found it a bit disappointing. I'm not gonna lie. I was a little bit let down by it. I think what I really liked about the book, well, one of the many things that I really liked about it is how this has a body horror that doesn't really exist in the other books. At least the other books that I've read. Seeing the corruption of the Legion just from the Laren Temple was really interesting, and not even just the Legion, but also the human characters as well, and how they really delve into some truly heinous acts, and it's just so disgusting. This book is foul. It really lends itself well to this idea of like what the Emperor's children will become later, and you even get kind of noise marines for the first time. Marius is like the Legion's first noise marine. There is something so wacky and so creative about like a space marine wielding a musical instrument and using that to inflict damage, and it's also like it fires like energy beams explosions, and that whole opera house scene was nuts. I really like the creativity that was on display here. Okay, sure, a little bit on the nose with the whole like snake imagery at the beginning with the lair, but again, it's not as on the nose as Ferrus Manus of the Iron Hands with his iron hands, with the ship the Iron Hand, or the Hand of Iron, excuse me. I really did enjoy this book. I think it was paced incredibly well, and I think with a lot of the other books, there are a lot of like monologues and there's a lot of like dialogue there that really delves into the main themes of the book, whereas here it's mainly through action. And that's what's really unique about this one, is that perfectionism is seen through the actions of the characters more than actually what they say. And I found that to be a really amazing exploration of the theme and how quickly someone can like basically drown in excess, and how it can really happen to anyone. And if you're not careful, it can kind of destroy you. And I think it's a very, very interesting theme, very unique among these books. And yeah, and I think this is a really appropriate way to end off the kind of, this doesn't really count as like part of the first 4 books or the first like trilogy, others might argue, but I think this is a great like 5th book to complement those other ones. I think it technically has a continuation, but it doesn't really involve any of the other characters that were sort of seen there. Although if I'm not mistaken, you do meet the Mournival here though at a certain point. At this point, it's before Loken joins the Mournival. Like he's still like a regular captain. And yeah, and this book, I mean, this is the most on the nose part about the book, but it ends with Horus basically like sending legions off to their own parts of the galaxy to basically be like, and here's your book, and you get a book, and you get a book. And it feels that way when he's sort of sending everybody off. But yeah, I really enjoyed Fulgrim. It sounds like a strange thing to say after I just said that I enjoyed it. It's probably my least favorite of the first like 5 books, but I still thoroughly enjoyed it. And I think after having known like nothing about the Emperor's children, it was really interesting to see their 30k counterparts and see like where they're going to end up in 40k. And I think, yeah, I think it's a great book. I think it's definitely worth reading. And that sort of ends the true beginnings of the heresy. All 5 of these like first initial heresy books are really well written. They're really good. And there's a lot to love about Fulgrim, even if I do see it as still being the weakest out of the 5. It shines a light on the inner workings of the Emperor's children. It introduces Slaneshi demons. It has a really unique spin on the remembrancers more as artists than sort of journalists or historians. And it does really properly kick off the heresy. This is sort of, at the end of this book really does initiate sending off all of the legions to their own places, doing their own thing. You know, everyone gets their little task to do and everyone gets sent off, and this is it. This is officially it. It took 5 books to get here, but yeah, I think it was honestly a great way to do it. Interesting to do it through an Emperor's Children book specifically, but yeah, still very, very well done. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe and all that good stuff would be really appreciated. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.